It's kind of ironic. Poor people love spending money on Gucci so they can look rich, versus real rich people love spending money on things that help them look normal so they can just fit in. But the real reason why some people will get rich, while most people will stay poor, isn't because of what clothes you wear. It's because of this. See, in our economic system today, there are three different types of people. We have consumers, the C, we have investors, this I, and then we have entrepreneurs, the E. Now, every single person is a consumer. Rich people, middle class people, poor people, everybody's a consumer because everybody's got to eat and everybody's got to have clothes on their back. But not everybody is an investor and not everybody is an entrepreneur. And the way that our economic system works is everybody is a consumer, which means everybody's going to go and spend money at a business. An entrepreneur is going to create a business and people got to spend money there, right? You need food, you need clothes, you need a car, you need things. People will spend money. But now who does that benefit? It doesn't benefit you. I mean, yeah, you get some clothes, but you don't actually make any money. When you go and buy something at Walmart versus Gucci, it doesn't actually put any wealth in your pocket. It's just putting money into the entrepreneur's pocket, but that also benefits the investor. Because now when you go out and spend money at Walmart or Amazon or Gucci, yeah, the entrepreneur gets the money, but so does the investor, because guess what? Anybody can be an owner of Amazon or Walmart because these are publicly traded companies, which means they're traded on the stock market. So if you buy one share of Amazon, you buy one share of Walmart, you become one of the owners of these companies. But that's not kind of the point of what I'm talking about right now. The key here is consumers spend money, which then benefit the investors and it benefits the entrepreneurs. So consumers are working to earn money to fuel this economic system. The problem is most people are only consumers and employees. Now, most people are only consumers, meaning they make money just to spend money. This is why most people will stay poor, is because they're fueling this economic system with no benefit to them. All their money is just going out. Well, nothing's coming back in. Versus some people go out and start a business. You don't have to start a business to benefit from this. But some people will go out and start a business and then they have the potential to reap the rewards because then consumers will spend money in their business. And then some people will go out and start investing, which means instead of using the money to consume a product, they use their money to buy an asset. They use their money to buy some ownership. And now when you do that, you get to benefit from the way this economic system works, because then when consumers spend money, you get to benefit as well. I mean, we've seen some crazy things happen in the last couple of years where people will spend money they don't have. And it's funny in some instances when you see people talking about how they spent $8,000 on a trip to Bali when they had already all this credit card debt. But that is what stimulates the economic system. Them going out and spending money they don't have benefits Delta, it benefits Hilton, it benefits these companies. It's really bad for your personal finances. I am not an advocate of this. It is not your patriotic duty to live broke for the sake of our economy, okay? I am a big teacher of don't do that. But I'm going to talk reality now. That spending, which unfortunately is the majority of America. The majority of America has no idea of how to use their money. So what do? They just spend, and then spend more with credit card debt, and then spend more with lines of credit, and then spend more with buy now, pay later, or as I like to call it, broke now, broke later. But that's what stimulates this economic system. So most people are just spending, and then spending more with all this debt, which benefits these people, leaving this person broke. Now you might have heard me say, I kind of hinted at this, is most people are just consumers and employees. Now, what does being an employee have to do with it? I'm not saying that being an employee is bad. I'm saying this from a tax perspective because as an attorney who's not your attorney, what I can tell you is that as an employee, you are subject to the highest taxes and lowest tax write-offs. Now, what do I mean by an employee? I mean a W-2 earner. A W-2 earner is subject to the highest tax rates. It's called the ordinary tax rates, and you're also subject to the lowest tax write-offs. Versus when you are an entrepreneur, you are subject to higher potential tax deductions. When I go out, I was just in San Diego for a little while and Los Angeles for a business trip. That trip, that flight out to Southern California was a tax write-off for my business. The meals that I ate with the partners that I was meeting out there were tax write-offs. The car that I had to drive was a tax write-off. The hotel that I had to stay in was a tax write-off because that's what the tax code says. Investors also get either lowest tax breaks or higher tax write-offs. And what I mean by that is if you go out and you make $1 million in the stock market. You buy a stock and then 5 years later you make $1 million profit and you sell it. You have $1 million of profit. Well, you pay lower taxes on the $1 million of profit here versus if you earned that money as, say, a doctor. If you made $1 million as a doctor in a year, half of that money, or about half, is going to go to taxes, depending on what state you live in. Versus if you made $1 million as an investor from your stock market portfolio, now, as of today, your top tax rate is 20%. This is why it's so important to understand this. Now, again, what I'm saying is not that you need to quit your job. What I'm saying is you have to understand this, because if you live in a first world country like America, you have to be a business owner. Now, I'm not saying you need to quit your job and go out and start a business, because most people, the vast majority of people, should not go out and start a business. I'm not saying it's wrong to be a business owner. I'm not saying it's wrong to be an employee. What I'm saying is you have to understand the system, because guess what? You can own a business without operating it. You can go out and be an investor and own businesses without having to operate them. Because guess what? Starting a business is hard. It's got its own stresses. I know being an employee is hard. It's got its own stresses as well. But not everybody's meant to be an entrepreneur. And there's nothing wrong with that. Guess what? You don't have to be an entrepreneur to benefit from the system. Look, anybody can be an investor. If you have $100 in your pocket right now, you can be an investor and start benefiting from the way that this economic system works. But that requires you to, number one, understand this. I don't understand, but we don't learn this in school. I went through a lot of schooling. I went through high school, college, a year of grad school, and then law school. And I never once learned a thing about money, never once learned a thing about investing, never once learned a thing about building wealth. Yet every single person is going to school that way they can become wealthy, right? I mean, we go to school that way we can get a good job, so we can ultimately make money, so we can ultimately build wealth. But there's a little bit of a disconnect, because having a job is different than building wealth. Having a job gives you an income. Investing is how you build a fortune. But we're never taught the differentiation. See, we all want to build wealth. Nobody grows up thinking, I can't wait to be broke and in debt. Everybody grows up thinking, I can't wait to become successful so I can build wealth and buy nice things and take care of my family and go on nice vacations and have freedom. That's what we grow up thinking. But we're never taught that. And the reality is we live in what's called a capitalist system. That is the name of our economic system. And in a capitalist system, there are two ways that you can make money. You can make money from your labor, or you can make money from your capital. Your labor is your work. I am the CEO of Briefs Media. When I go to work, I get paid a salary. That is my labor. But I'm also the owner of Briefs Media. I get paid the profits because I am the owner. As the owner, I am entitled to the profits. As the employee, I'm entitled to a salary. And if you want to be able to win in a capitalist system, you cannot just rely on your salary if you want to build wealth. Wealth is built through your equity, through your ownership, through your investments, not just your salary. And I'll give you another example. You might think, well, what if somebody can make a lot of money? If you can make $1 million a year as a doctor, or as a celebrity, as a singer, as an NBA player, if I make a lot of money, well, now I'm going to be rich, right? No, because guess what? Eventually, you're going to want to stop working. If you're making $1 million a year and you're living $1 million a year lifestyle, you can have a nice big home. You can have a few nice cars. You can go on a lot of fancy vacations. You can have some nice watches. You can have a whole bunch of fancy toys. But guess what? If you don't go into work tomorrow, if you stop going on tours, if you stop doing surgeries, the money stops coming in. But the expenses are still there. I mean, you got to pay your housing payment, you got to pay for the cars, you got to pay for the stuff, and you got to pay for food. So now how do you pay for that if you're not working? This is what wealthy people are working towards. What wealthy people want to do is they want to take their money and they want to put it here. You don't have to go out and start a business. There's a lot of very, very, very incredibly wealthy people that have never started a business before. But what they did is they transferred some of their income into these assets, into these investments. What are these investments? The three assets that have built more wealth than anything else over the last century are stocks, real estate, and businesses. So now, as you work to make money, the question is, why are you working to earn this money? Are you working to make this money to drive a faster car and live a bigger home? Because that's what most people are doing. They're working to have nicer things. But what wealthy people want to do, which is a very different way to approach it, is they're working to earn money so they can own more assets. And the reason they want to own more assets is because these investments can then pay them with more money. And this is kind of a difficult process, because now imagine this, you work hard to make $10,000 and you put aside this $10,000 that you don't spend. That's a lot of work to do that. $10,000 is a lot of money. But now when you take this $10,000 and put it aside, you can do a couple of things. You can use it as a down payment on a BMW. You can use it to go out and buy a Rolex. You can use it on a vacation to Cancun, or you can take the $10,000 and invest that money. Now, when you invest that money, you have nothing to show, right? When you go and you buy a Rolex, you can show it off for a long time. When you go on a vacation to Cancun, you can enjoy some time with your family and show it off on Instagram. When you buy that BMW, well, now you can show it off because people will know you're making some nice money. But when you buy those investments, you have nothing to show for it. And you don't even get that much return when you invest at $10,000 during the first year or two. But this is where what wealthy people are doing is they have a longer term horizon where they understand the first few years of you starting this investment process is rough. You're going to go through markets, ups and downs. You're going to see very little returns, and you don't really see any success. But that's where you got to stick with it. And this is what most people are not willing to do. They're not willing to go through the decade of sacrifice. I call it a decade of sacrifice because it's a decade of you spending less and earning more while investing like crazy in order for you to build wealth. See, it's not rocket science. If you want to build wealth, you got to understand the system and you got to put your money to work. And then, of course, you have a lot of people that get into the real nitty-gritty. Which index fund should I buy? Which ETF should I buy? What should the expense ratio be? What should the mutual fund be? Which stock should I buy? Should I buy single-family homes or multifamily homes? When in reality, it's generally not the investment that breaks people. It's the fact that they never get started or they don't stick with it. Now, of course, sure, you can invest your money into a company that goes bankrupt and lose your investment, but it's a learning process. I mean, you got to be able to get up. I've lost a lot of money in my investments. But this is where, if you want to build wealth, you got to understand this is our economic system. You can hate it or love it. I'm just telling you the way that the system works. This is what's happening right now. This is what wealthy people understand. And wealthy people want their money here instead of all their money just flowing here. Of course, you want to have the nice things. I'm not saying don't have the nice things. I'm not saying don't buy the nice things. I'm saying buy whatever nice and expensive and dumb things you want. I just want you to be able to afford it. I don't want you to have to stress about the payments. I don't want you to have to worry how you're going to be able to afford it. I want you to be able to have all the nice stuff, but just be able to afford it first. But this requires you now to understand the system and to not keep spending your money and making everybody else rich. Because when you take this money that you're working so hard to earn, and you give it to BMW, you give it to Rolex, you give it to all these other companies, well, you're making somebody else rich at your expense. That's fine if you can afford it. But the problem is, today, the vast majority of people, especially in America, can't. Yet they keep spending. You spend with your credit card, you spend by digging into your savings, you spend by other lines of credit, you spend with buy now, pay later. It's great for the economic system. It's great for my stock portfolio. It's great for your stock portfolio, but it's not good for your financial situation. And what I'm trying to educate is, look, this is how this works. We're not taught this, but if you want to build wealth, you gotta understand this and start using your money the right way. Now, I have a free newsletter called Market Briefs where my team breaks down what's happening in the financial markets into a fun, witty, and easy to read newsletter. We cover things like the economy, housing, stocks, crypto, and the global economy. It's completely free. You can read it in less than 5 minutes every morning, and I'll put the link for you down in the description below. But this is where, if you want to build wealth, understand the way that this works, be willing to stick with it, and understand some people are not going to understand it. But if you're willing to go through a decade of sacrifice, you're going to live a completely different life in 10 years. But along the way, I also want you to invest in your education. Start by reading some books. Read some books on money management. Read some books on mindset. Read some books on people management. Read some books on starting a business. And read some books on how to grow in your career. And if you do that, you are going to be a completely different person. Not necessarily with personality, but a completely different person financially. Because you've changed the way that you think and you invested in your financial education. Because this is something you got to do on your own. School's not going to do it for you. You're going to have to go out and do this on your own, because if you don't, you're going to be the person that's paying the price and making everybody else rich. Most poor people and middle class people are working to buy nice things so you look like you're rich. What the real rich are doing is they want to have so much money that they can go and buy the nice things and not have to worry about the price, because it is their assets that are buying it for them. But you have to really know how this playbook works. So let me break this down with an example from somebody that I know personally.